intends to facilitate. And more and more we're thinking in a value chain perspective. Maybe if you look back in the past, Africa Rice Center, then the West Africa Rice Development Association was very well known for its varieties, of course the Nerica varieties. We still want to be known for our varieties and the Nerica varieties, and I can tell you that we're already starting to work on new worthy successors of those Nerica varieties that will come out very soon. But I think we're all convinced that it is not enough to just think about technologies that raise at least potentially production. We have to look way beyond production and think of the value chain, think of the market, think of the consumers. What type of rice are they buying? And how can we cater to that particular demand? And that means that a rice research center like Africa Rice has to think way beyond only varieties. We have to think, of course, of the inputs.
How come this continent can afford paying $30 billion in importing food and agricultural products so that it can produce and even export to the rest of the world, and yet we are not innovative enough to find ways of getting $13 billion a year to finance the development of our own agriculture? There is something wrong there. But looking at it, we came to a realization. We said, okay, maybe the opportunities that are there is a market, there is an effective demand. It's clear. If we're talking for rice now, we can say there is a clear, effective demand which is not supplied by the domestic, regional, and continental supply, an effective demand of $5 billion. How do we get the system responding to that? But when we took the issue on different commodities, we said, okay, maybe there is a problem of perception of the extent of the demand, the opportunity there. Because of fragmentation of the market space, along national line, borders, sub-regional borders, regional economic community borders, a business person sitting probably in the office in Niger in Mali cannot perceive that he or she could have some opportunities in some place in Central Africa or down Eastern Africa or Southern Africa. And we say, what if we try to work and deepen and broaden regional integration? This is the regional integration dimension that came in. And the second one, we said, okay, there is also a problem, basically, farmers, the African farmers, not able to respond to those opportunities, this effective demand that is there. So there is some kind of a disconnection of the farm stage from the market, and proceeding from a market-oriented or market-driven approach, we say, okay, we start from the market. We know that we have an effective demand for rice now. We say, okay, it's $5 billion. How do we manage to get the African farmer connected to that market and supplying this market? And we said, okay, then we need to adopt a value chain approach, which links all those stages. Otherwise, we'll be focusing on the different stages in a piecemeal manner and not connecting them to each other. That's how we came up with this whole concept of developing the value chains of some strategic food and agricultural commodities within a framework or perspective of regional integration.
FAO is particularly committed to agribusiness, agro-industries development, engaging more closely with the private sector. And so this regional study or promotion of value chains links directly into greater agro-industrialization and allowing Africa not just to produce, but actually to add value to its products. And we think that's a very important aspect of this work. Just a few words on the maize. Okay, a lot has been said about rice, but I also think that the maize aspect is important, not just as a staple food in the region, but really to provide feed for the livestock sector, which again is growing in importance in the region as people are becoming wealthier. They're gradually changing their dietary habits to consuming more and more livestock feed. And I know that a lot of maize is also being imported into the region, not for human consumption, but to feed the livestock sector.
Le responsable, je peux dire, de toutes ces activités qui se tiennent en Afrique de l'Ouest. Donc nous avons tout le devoir et l'intérêt d'abord d'être présents pour accompagner ce processus pour lequel nous attendons un résultat très important et déterminant, surtout dans le développement de l'agriculture dans la sous-région ouest africaine et en Afrique en général.
The impact, because if you know like legislation before, like what is the intervention is coming, and then like at any point of intervention now, of the project, you can say, well, this is my milestones, and this is what I've been achieving, and this is the number of farmers, which I bring out of poverty by increasing the income level, but also by making sure that they have access to food, for the food, but nutritional security, which is very important. And I think this initiative is really good, and RTA will take the lead for the maize, like Africa Rice is doing for the rice, and we are going to work together with all these institutions, FAO, ECA, AU, UNDP, to make sure that we achieve these objectives.
I was actually looking at this pathway. I was going to make a comment on the last bullet, capacity building and dissemination and domestication of the RPF. And I remember the chair said all of these are not cast in stone, so we can make suggestions on. Okay, so on behalf of the participants, I would suggest that we take a good look at the last bullet, because the way it stands now, what I understand by it is that after the development of the RPF, we are going to share it with all the countries. We are going to develop capacity in those countries for them to be able to implement. So we have everything packed into that bullet in terms of the dissemination, the implementation, and the capacity to implement. That's what I understand. So if it's possible to make that a bit clearer, so we don't develop capacity before we disseminate and things like that.
I was telling Joshua yesterday that this meeting is one of the best I've had since we started this initiative. It was just great discussion yesterday. We went to the point, whereas at some meeting, I said I can attest to this, sometimes a lot of talk around the point, and but this one was really to the point. We got what we wanted to do. We know exactly where we're going.
So we agreed that Africa Rice will take the lead for rice, and we'll ask IATA, you will ask IATA to take the lead for maize, and African Union will ask ILRI to take the lead for livestock. So I think tasks are clear. Under these regulatory policy frameworks, we will start with baseline studies, stock taking. Again, so much is already done, so I don't think there are many issues that we need to redo. It's a matter of bringing things together for these three key commodities. We also talked about the importance of mapping potential, mapping the potential of value chain development for rice, for maize, for livestock. Where is that potential? Taking into account also, of course, the issues of climate change, land tenure, and in many cases water will also be an issue. And next we will work on development of mechanisms, policies that will help disentangle these value chains that we see at the regional level, disentangle those value chains at that level. I think those three elements, I think that is what I retained from our debates, are going to be key in these regulatory policy frameworks. It's not going to be something that will be done in 1 day, 1 year. It's something, a venture that will start all together, using our comparative advantages for at least 3, 4, 5 years, I think. For rice, if I just may say something in particular for rice, we will build again on projects that are ongoing, funded by the European Union, by SIDA, Canadian funding agency, and of course we will build on what we're already doing in CART, in the Coalition for African Rice Development. And there we have done a lot of work on national rice development strategies. This is the moment, I think, with the support, with your support and the support from FAO, again the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the EU, to lift that to the regional level.
And colleagues, I think what we're seeing and saying is that we have started our engines and there's no going back. That's one key thing. The second thing is that we also recognize the fact that there is a challenge ahead of us. And we have what it takes to address the challenge. I'm sure that this is just the beginning, and we will snowball along the path and we will get there ultimately. Whatever lies in the path, on the part of the African Union Commission to facilitate, in the context of a multi-institutional platform with our core partners, ECA, FAO, we will do everything we can to continue to facilitate the process.